Hello, and thank you for asking me to join you today to speak about a recent funded project called The Realities of Academic Data Sharing. My name is Cynthia Hudson Vitale. And I am the Director of Scholars and Scholarship with the Association of Research Libraries. For those of you that are unfamiliar with it, the Association of Research Libraries is a nonprofit member organization representing 126 of the largest federal and academic and public research libraries in the US and Canada. Within our portfolio is our area is focused on university-based publishing, research services, and the evolving scholarly record. Today, I'm here to speak with you about a recent NSF grant we received focused on better understanding the realities of academic data sharing. The research team is comprised of myself, Jake Carlson from the University of Michigan, Jennifer Moore from Washington University in St. Louis, John Petters from Virginia Tech, Joel Herndon, who is the director of the Center for Data Visualization at Duke University, Lisa Johnston from the University of Minnesota, and Wendy Kozlowski from Cornell University. We also have an advisory board made up of representatives from AAU, APLU, COGR, and ARL membership. So this research project specifically seeks to answer where funded researchers are sharing their data and what is the quality of the metadata. How are researchers making decisions about why and how to share their data? And what is the cost to the institution to implement the federally mandated public access to research data policies? So ARL is working directly with these 6 institutions to conduct this research. And we've divided it into 3 specific phases. 1, we hope to assess public access to research data repository use. 2, conduct a retrospective study of public access research data practices of faculty across 5 disciplines on academic campuses. And 3, collect financial information on expenses related to public access to research data. To scope this, we are looking at 5 specific disciplines: environmental science, material science, psychology, the biomedical sciences, and physics. And we will drill down into these areas as well. So our work plan, phase 1, to better understand where researchers share their data, we will leverage the data site and Crossref API to understand where data is shared. We will stratify this by institution, subject keyword, funding agency, and data location. So we're really interested to see are folks sharing their data on institutional repositories, domain or subject specific repositories, or is it in other general repositories such as Zenodo or elsewhere? And then assess the metadata quality across those public access locations. 2, we hope to do a retrospective study of researcher public access to data practices. So looking at those 5 disciplinary areas, we hope to hold focus groups with research teams on their practices, while also collecting costing information on the use of campus-based services and non-campus services to make data available. This component or phase of the project will also involve campus mapping of services and infrastructure. And 3, so phase 2 and 3 are really kind of a Venn diagram in many ways. We want to better understand the approximate costs of public access to research data. So our approach to this is to conduct a landscape analysis of existing costing frameworks, prioritize the costing buckets or the costing activities based on institutional stakeholder needs, and 3, incorporate those costing questions into the focus group work of phase 2. And that's why I say they're kind of interrelated. So our expected outputs, we really will have data and information about where funded researchers are sharing their research data, along with workflows for institutions to do the same. So some very clear methods and protocols about how an institution can better understand where faculty are sharing their data. Models for institutional support to public access to research data. So in the phase 2 of the project, when we're doing that campus mapping, we're really hoping to see how different institutions are organizationally set up to facilitate public access to research data. We will be developing disciplinary case studies and decision-making case studies and decision-making factors influencing public access to research data. So this is going to come out of the focus group specifically. And then finally, we really hope to produce a number of data, information, and case studies on cost for public access to research data and the possible differentiators for those expenses. So this is a 2-year project. It kicked off in August. Each of the phases of the work have a subcommittee that is working to answer the questions and to define a very clear project plan. So within the costing framework, or in the costing phase of the work, we have completed the landscape analysis of public access to research data costing. That included analysis of across 5 existing data activity costing frameworks. So looking at what were the defined activities, what were any key considerations or descriptions of the work, and what was the model and process for building that. So across these 5 areas, across these 5 frameworks, we have a couple of takeaways that we learned. First, none of the existing frameworks address the entire life cycle of research. Many of them were focused on specific areas such as storage or preservation or curation, and they went down to a very granular level, and it wasn't taking into consideration all of the different aspects at once. So lots of opportunity for this grant to then bring those together and think about how we can think about things more holistically. Additionally, one of the takeaways we had after doing this landscape analysis is that the activities that comprise public access to research data or data sharing should be distinct from scientific data activities. So if we want to hone in on just this one component, just this one, but it's made up of many activities, we need to be sure that we're only focusing on the activities specific for data sharing or public access to data. So that means certain components of data visualization may not be included in the costs, or when a researcher talks about data cleaning, are they talking about, standardizing Excel sheets for definitions of variables, in which case that could potentially be a public access to research data costing component, or it could not be. So the questions and the work done in phase 2 is going to be really important, as well as the definitions around these activities. The third kind of big takeaway after doing the landscape analysis was really that costs for public access to research data are best captured across the phases of the project. And you can see in the image on the right side of the screen, my right, that is just an example of how this is probably the best way to capture this information. So the phases of the research, whether those costs are one-time or reoccurring, whether they're direct or indirect, and what is the division between labor and capital. And obviously these can be dollar signs for each of these, or they could potentially be % effort. So moving forward, that's going to be how we kind of consider collecting this information and making it available. So as was stated previously, after this phase of the research is completed, we will be trying to prioritize what of these activities are critical for our stakeholders at our institutions to know about. There's a little bit of concern that there's among the research group that there's so many activities still that are possible to collect information about. What'll kind of give us a high enough yet complete view of what this cost is. So to do that, we will be developing a survey instrument and conducting brief interviews with institutional stakeholders to prioritize the most important public access to research data costing activities. So really hoping to engage researchers directly, library directors, vice presidents of research office folks, campus-based IT, as well as presidents and provosts. And we're hoping to run this next step of this phase of the research in Q1 and Q2 of 2022. We would love the opportunity to engage with FDP and its members. I know that there was a thought exchange done previously, and we're hoping to leverage that work to informing some of these priorities too. But if there are additional opportunities where we can work with you and, run some of the same questions through, or if you just want to kind of dig in deep with this work, we would love the opportunity to engage with you more. So thank you very much for the time today. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this research project. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions. Thank you. Bye.